Hello everyone, Basic Ollie here, hope you're all doing well and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be looking at the new Gran Turismo State of Play trailer that was revealed on the 2nd of February. We're going to be breaking it down, looking at the good and the bad. There's so much to cover here, so I'm going to try and go through it as much detail as I can, but at the same time not try and bore you. So here we go, let's go through some of the main features on Gran Turismo 7 and what to expect when it comes out on March 4th. Now, quite quickly into the trailer, they do reveal that there'll be over 400 cars. We did not get an exact car amount or how many cars will be from certain manufacturers, and we did get 34 locations in terms of tracks and 97 layouts. So they give you a few examples here as we go through Trial Mountain. But one important thing they did note is more tracks and cars will be added throughout the life of this game. Next then, we are going to be looking at the world map, basically the main menu of Gran Turismo 7. And what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to I'm going to pause the screen and we're going to look at these icons and try and exactly figure out what they mean. So firstly, world circuit. So I assume these are all the tracks that are currently on the game. You've got what looks like a magnifying glass, and near the bottom left, you've got the camera on left, which I assume is Scapes. Not quite sure what in the top left might be, maybe the drift mode, but it looks more like a tent, so I can't comment too much on that one. I believe the one at the top there, that probably looks like licenses, so it's good to see them back. And then there's a picture of a garage with a 7 icon, which I assume is the amount of new cars you've potentially earned. The one to the right of that looks like the museum. So I assume that is where you're going to learn all the history lessons, like they mentioned. The Porsche to the right there as well. Really important, the FIA logo. So if anyone who's a big fan of GT Sport Online and is coming from GT Sport to this game, it's good to see there is an FIA logo. But they didn't really go too much into that. I've got to be honest, I didn't hear nothing about the online game modes or how the FIA is going to work. So slightly disappointed with that, but hopefully we'll hear more in the coming months. Then it looks like there's a kind of classic car manufacturers, and then there's some modern car manufacturers where you can buy new cars there instead. Bottom right looks like maybe where you can do some like online with your friends and family. To the left of that, it looks like we've got a picture of an alloy, which I can only assume is for customization for the actual looks of your vehicle, which I would assume is where the livery editor is going to be as well. And then to the left of that, you have what looks like a spanner, so again all your tuning and anything you want to do to your cars. And then above that, last but not least, looks like the Gran Turismo Cafe, which is going to be absolutely awesome. I can't wait to change the oil on my car once more. Now, what happens next is they show us basically what happens when you first enter Gran Turismo, basically start your career as such, and it looks like the return of the used car garage is back, which is exactly what you want. And basically it goes in details here saying when you start your campaign, you're going to get a compact car. Just a small hatchback, something with low brake horsepower, and immediately I noticed something here called collector's points, which was really interesting to note. So we'll look a bit more into that. Sunday Cup returns, which is an absolute classic from back in the Gran Turismo's days of Gran Turismo 3. I remember doing that very much back in the day, and just it's where you first start. MX5, classic MX5, and there's car collector, and yeah, there's just a few things in here that you've got to pick up on, really. It looks awesome. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll see a bit more of that in the future. Didn't go into too much detail of that. I suppose they've got to fit a lot into it, so it is hard to see everything. And of course, the Gran Turismo Cafe returns. And one thing they did mention is that actual people that designed the original cars, such as the MX-5, will actually start talking about it, which is absolutely mega. And here, again, you're going to see screenshots or actual gameplay or whatnot of the actual collector's manual that you get for collecting all the different cars, which is absolutely awesome. And then once more, they go into the used car dealership in a little bit more detail. They talk actually a bit about the Japanese classics and about how much they're actually going up in price, like they are in real life. And they also mention as well, which is important to note, that these do change daily, but not every single item is going to change. So there's going to be a lot of the same car in there. This is essentially what it's going to be like in real life. You know, if you look on websites like Auto Trade in the UK, cars will still be there if you look daily, but eventually they will sell on and they will be replaced with different cars. So I thought that was a pretty nice touch. Now, at this point of the state of play, they do mention the revival of 3 classic Gran Turismo circuits that are Trial Mountain, Deep Forest and High Speed Ring, which I'm sure we're all very pleased to see. So that's 3 new tracks added to the game compared to GT7. But again, like I said at the start, I want to talk about the good and the bad, and I will pick up something here straight away from the fact that I've played a lot of GT Sport, and I'm sure many of you who have watched this will be picking it up as well. So actually, there's actually a section about the circuit experience like there is in GT Sport, but it's actually this part here. Now, the wet weather, as you can see here, which is awesome, but what does concern me, and I have to be honest, is the wet weather was very selective on GT Sport. There was only certain tracks where wet weather was allowed. And on this gameplay that we've seen here, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It just looks like Spa and the Red Bull Ring. I'm sure there'll be other tracks, but it looks like it might just be selective. So that does ring alarm bells for me, because there's dynamic weather, but only at certain tracks. So that's something to look out for. Now, the next big thing to note as we pause it is actually the return of the license centers. You can see it's National B, A, International B, International A, and the Super license. And I'm super, super pleased to see those back. I really hope they are difficult, like in the previous Gran Turismos. GT Sport was just way too easy. So fingers crossed on this one. They're a lot harder. I'm sure you guys will agree with me on that one. It's part of the challenge. You've got to struggle on the licenses. It is what it is. Now, shortly after this, something pops up that they mentioned called Mission Races. That includes a drag mode where you can tune your car, and then you have to carefully apply the throttle depending on the situation and the car that you're in. And we have a very cool, like, kind of drag graphic in the top left-hand corner, which is pretty cool. This is something completely new, so it's good to see that they've actually added something here that I've never thought in a million years they'd really add, to be honest. So that is very cool, and we do actually get another sneak peek at the drift mode. Not really for me, the drift mode stuff, but if you are a massive fan of drifting, then this looks really, really cool, I have to say. So props to Gran Turismo for including that. Now, another feature added is 2-player split screen mode. Now, this will bring back memories of father-son kind of relationships. It's, for me, when I was with my dad, this is the kind of thing we'd always try and do, or you could do it with your brother as well, where you could do the classic on one TV, have like a duvet cover or whatnot, splitting the screen in half, someone's at the bottom, and then someone's watching at the top. But yeah, this is a cool feature. How much it will be used, though, I really don't know. I really, really don't know. But again, it's something. It's nice to have, isn't it? It's nice to have. You'd rather have it than not. Next up on the list is time and weather simulation. Now, this was very interesting, actually. In this part of the state of play, they try and go into detail about how time and date is going to change during essentially the races, and how weather changes, and even how the stars are going to look different in the game depending on the region that you're in and how cloudy it is. Which is just, when you think about that kind of stuff, it's just mind-blowingly good, isn't it? That is awesome to hear. What effect that will really have to you in game, I don't know. Again, until you actually play it, until you actually see the gameplay of it changing, you don't really know what difference it's going to make. That's something we're not going to know until we actually play the game, you know? Unless we have like some sort of endurance race, which this actually does hint at, I would assume. The fact that they're talking about from day into night and track temperatures changing, how that will affect the car. That sounds really promising and intriguing, because I think all Gran Turismo fans like myself, we want to see some endurance racing desperately. We really didn't see that in GT Sport. So yeah, we're looking for that. And then on to the next part is basically talk about the wet weather conditions. So at Tsukuba here, and you can see it goes from kind of day and night, well, it goes from like cloudy to sunny. You can see where it's rained, and then a wet line starts to form, and naturally this will disappear. Now, for that to naturally disappear, the races have to be a certain length, don't they? You know, you're not going to see, if in a 10-15 minute race, you're not going to see the track change dramatically. So in a longer race, you would actually see that. So again, heavily hints towards some longer races, which I'm sure we're all desperately wanting and needing for this series. And I really hope that that is something that we do get. But this is really good. Like, this is mega to see. Absolutely awesome. This is definitely something Gran Turismo needed to heavily invest in, and I believe they have. I just really hope that we're going to see it at more than like 3 or 4 tracks, because that could be a real killer otherwise. But again, just my opinion. Next, they talk about something called the weather indicator, which is in the bottom left-hand corner. Now, I kind of struggled to understand exactly what it was. I assume from what they were telling us that basically it tells us how likely it is to rain in that certain area of the track, or how wet that track already is. That I struggled a little bit to understand. If anyone can clarify for me in the comments, and for anyone else watching this video, if you can clarify that a little bit, please let us know. But I've watched it time and time again. I'm not 100% sure exactly what it's trying to say, whether it's how wet the track is, or the current weather conditions of where you are in the track and how likely it is to rain. If you know the answer to that, let us know in the comments. Okay then, next feature that was shown in the State of Play, something called Music Replay. Now, when I saw this, and my first reaction was a little bit like, well, that's cool, but why? Listen, some people might find it really awesome, the fact that... So essentially how this works is the replay will change depending on the song that is playing in the background. But for me, I never really have any music playing when I watch the replays. One big thing I did note, whether this will actually be the case when it comes out, is that there are no annoying black bars at the top or the bottom of the screen. So that is awesome to see. And then they showed us basically how it works. So they've got a classic song here. They're going to show you a classic car, and basically the camera angle changes depending on the music. A very, very strange feature. Cool, but I'll tell you what, the word's quirky. It's a quirky feature. Not really sure what use it is going to be to me or you. They actually show at the end as well, which I will show, is some gameplay of you actually having to beat the time. It's almost like a rally stage, but with the music. It is bizarre, it's strange, but we'll have a look at that more in detail near the end. Up next on the list is car physics. Now, in this part of the State of Play, they talked about how they've been working with people like Lewis Hamilton and other racing drivers and racing teams to really nail down the physics. Now, Gran Turismo physics have always been brilliant, but I would never say it's a full-on simulator, which they do claim during this State of Play, actually, that they take pride in it being a simulator. So, fair enough, we'll have to wait and see what it's actually like until we get it in our hands. Talking about getting it in your hands, they do talk about the haptic feedback on the PlayStation 5, and how essentially as well, as you can see from here, they're actually talking about the aerodynamics. So haptic feedback about how you'll feel the tyres or the car and the brake lock up if you brake too much, or you'll feel the understeer through the haptic feedback. And they also talked about aerodynamics and how, I think, essentially as the conditions change, aerodynamics change as well and stuff like that. So from a car physics point of view, it does sound very promising. But again, I'm going to wait until I actually play it, because I still don't quite believe it's going to be a full-on sim, but we shall see. Maybe I'm proven wrong, but I don't quite think it's going to be a full-on sim. Okay then, next on the list is 3D audio. Now, there's no point really talking about this. The best thing to do is to essentially let the game do all the talking, really. So we're going to cut to the bit where they try and emphasise just what the 3D audio is, and hopefully, fingers crossed, you'll be able to you'll be able to hear what the changes are and just how good that 3D audio is. So let's just skip to that part, and you guys have a real listen, just exactly what the game sounds like. Now we head to tuning and car customization. This was quite big back in the early days of Gran Turismo, especially games like Gran Turismo 4, I feel, was really where they took a big dive into customization and car upgrades, essentially, especially when they introduced NOS on Gran Turismo 4, which was always a bit crazy. And you can see here is just basically them doing upgrades on the Porsche 911, going through the different parts and components that you can actually buy. I believe they did note there's over 60 pieces, or up to 60 pieces of equipment that you can purchase and equip to every single car. And they showed this cool thing here, which is one of the original Volkswagen Beetles. They actually show you the difference between a stock Volkswagen Beetle and what happens essentially when you modify the hell out of it. And it's actually quite funny. The difference is quite dramatic, as you can see. So on the right hand side you've got the tuned Volkswagen Beetle. On the left hand side you've just got the standard, which is really struggling to even get to 50 miles per hour, as the one on the right here is essentially, by looks of it, I think we're even going to reach up to 140 miles per hour. Yeah, 150, 149 before we get to the turn 1 at Brands Hatch. So massive difference there, but again, awesome to see. Very awesome to see. Next up, we get to see some customization options on the different cars that you own. So you can change things like brake caliper colours. You can also change the wang, which is absolutely awesome. And it's not just one design either. There's quite a few, which is awesome to see. Wide body kits, widely available. See what I did there? On different cars, which is absolutely awesome. A huge variety of different colours, which is, again, awesome. Basically, if you are a livery designer, I think you're going to absolutely love the customization options you've got on this. And yeah, even things like adding roll cages, different types of roll cages to your MX-5, little things like that is just incredible. And again, you can see the wide body upgrade, and you can actually see the preview as well. So before you have to sink 50,000 credits into it, you can actually see what it's like. So that is pretty awesome. Now lastly, the thing that I picked up on, and the last thing they really mentioned, was Scapes mode. Now Scapes was in GT Sport, and essentially it lets you put your car in a real world environment, and you can take basically stunning photos. And it does go into a little bit more detail, as in you can actually, the way you take photos in game and how beautiful you can make them visually and how you can make them come to life. Loads of customizational options and stuff like that. So again, Scapes, not something I personally use, but if you love photography and you love taking pictures of cars in beautiful locations, then Scapes mode is definitely an awesome feature, and it's not really something you really see in any other racing game. So this is a very, very cool feature indeed, but not something personally I'm going to look into too much. Now, do you remember when I said about that weird kind of music game play mode that you can do? This is exactly what it is. So as the song goes on and the beats come through, it actually goes down, and you've got to try and complete as much of the track, or do as much driving as you can distance-wise before the song ends. It's just a very arcadey mode. I find it weird. Listen, it might be great, who knows, but I feel like it's going to be one of those features that you go, oh yeah, that's pretty cool, but you'll touch it once and you'll never ever touch it again. Only if it's in like the mission or control center or whatever will you really touch it. But yeah, that's just my opinion. Okay, so now what I would like to do is I'd actually like to go over basically the good stuff and the bad, and I want to give my honest opinion on stuff. So what I want to say essentially in this, and it's just my opinion on this little things that I've picked up on here that I think probably need to be added. I've added things like PP ratings for cars, a very good system. I hope that is really implemented into the game. I noticed that the Ford GT3 is a new Group 3 car, which is good to see, because the Group 3 cars are lacking slightly. But I want to talk about the stuff that's not really been picked up on, that I have personally picked up on, and kind of what I'm a little bit disappointed in. And I just want to get your guys' feedback and see what you think, because this is what I essentially picked up. So what I picked up here, the lack of GT3 cars. There's really a lack of them, the Group 3 cars. There's really not much added at all. I only really saw the Ford GT. And there's some classic ones, like the old classic GTRs, but I really didn't see that. There's really not a lot of new Group 3 cars, which for me is a little bit concerned. I did pick up earlier that the weather for certain tracks. They talk about dynamic weather, but again, I'm only seeing it for certain tracks from my GT Sport experience. So that does concern me, that it is track dependent, which again does concern me. No footage of any PS4 but gameplay. Now that is crucial, because this is a PS4 and PS5 game. There's nothing that we saw about the PS4, and so we have no idea how that is going to handle any of these upgrades. So what it's going to be like, we don't know. So if you're someone that has pre-ordered the PS4 version, yeah, not great. Got to be frank, not great that we haven't seen anything. Fingers crossed for you, and I hope it's not as... I hope the features aren't as laid back as I fear they might be for you, or the performance might be as bad as I fear for you, but that is a concern. Another thing I did pick up on is the UI looks very similar. Like, maybe a little bit more refreshed, you know. It looks exactly the same as GT Sport in terms of UI. If you've made, you know, your fan base wait 4 or 5 years, I think the least you could do, even if it's, I know the classic saying, if it's not broke, don't try and fix it kind of thing, but just make it a little bit more fresher. Just do a tiny few changes to it. It's really, I don't think it's that difficult. Yeah, I just feel like to make it feel more fresh, a new game, I think the UI does need to be looked at. Lack of online information was another thing I picked up on as well. We don't know anything. We literally don't know anything. The only thing we've really been told about online is what you can find on the PlayStation homepage when you go to pre-order it or look at online. A max of 20 players online by the looks of it, and even custom lobbies that might even be 16. So, yeah, no information about online. FIA races. Are PS4 and PS5 players going to be able to play together? Nothing on that. Nothing at all. And one thing I did actually want to mention, this is a state of play. There wasn't actually a lot of gameplay. There really wasn't. Like, there really wasn't at all. Like, I know they at the end they showed some gameplay, but I always feel like it's always the same with these, you know, when they always do these kind of like state of plays. But anyways, FIFA is a bad person, like EA. They say, oh, it's gameplay, but then they just show like replay cameras. It's not really gameplay. I want to see someone playing it, you know. I want to see a couple of laps of, you know, a race and then see what they get at the end, kind of reward-wise. That's what I want to see. So I really did think that there was a lack of actual gameplay. But that's just, again, my thoughts and opinions on it. There's lots of good stuff to add to it as we've gone through the list. So, yeah, really looking forward to it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, what you're looking forward to the most on this game. Let us know if you pre-ordered it as well in the comments. If you enjoyed this kind of video that I've done, like, subscribe, and, yeah, thanks very much. Take care. And if, yeah, I'll catch you for the next one. See you there. Ta-da.